Hi Year 7, it's Mrs Oxborough here. We are going with a video this week so you can see me as we do the lesson. It's still with the same structure, but now you can see me as we go through and I'll teach you the lesson. So we are continuing with our study into war poetry. It's week 4 this week and we're going to be looking at a poem called Mamet's Wood, and it's by somebody called Owen Shears. As usual, make sure you've got your copy of the poem and your fact book as well, pen, pencil, highlighter and things. So we're going to make a start straight away. So we're going to begin with a bit of a knowledge quiz. There are 5 terms on the screen in front of you: semantic field, chronological, third person narrative, metaphor and personification. What I'd like you to do is to write all of those words down on a piece of paper, pause the video, give yourself 5 minutes to go through and see if you can write down a definition of each of them. A couple of them we've done before in previous weeks, so it's just hopefully a bit of recall, but a couple of them are perhaps new ones that you might not have looked at before. Pause the video here and then have a go. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go. We're going to continue and have a look at the answers, and you can mark yours as you go. So a semantic field is a collection of words which are related to one another through similar meaning. So for example, if there was a poem about a ship, words such as ocean, waves, sea, tide, blue, storm, wind and so on, all of those would fit that semantic field. So they all linked to that idea of a ship. So that is semantic field. Chronological, this is when something follows the order in which the events occurred. So in a piece of writing, it might begin in the morning, and then as it continues, it might then refer to something that happened later in the afternoon. Third person narrative. This is where the narrator refers to all characters with third person pronouns. For example, he, she or they. Metaphor, we've definitely done this one before, so hopefully you remembered this one. This is where it suggests that one thing is another thing. So it's a type of comparison. So his hair is black as coal. And the final one then, personification. This is where an inanimate object is given human-like qualities. So the sun smiled or the wind whistled, something like that. Give yourself a mark out of 5. Hopefully you did okay on those. If there are any that you didn't get right or you had no idea on, make sure you pause now and just take a note of those definitions so you've got those for reference at another time. Moving on then, we're going to have a chance now to actually read the poem. Take a few moments to read the poem to yourself. Read it in your head or read it out loud, whatever works best. Or alternatively, you can listen to an audio recording of the poem. Now, there's a link here on the video, but there'll also be that link in the comments section below. So you can click on that, pause the video, go and watch that or listen to it, and then come back when you've read the poem. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a chance to do that now. We're going to begin with looking at the context of the poem, so it's quite important with that. So this poem is referring to events from World War I, particularly the Battle of the Somme, which was 1916. Okay, so if you don't really know much about World War I or Battle of the Somme, it was a major battle of the First World War which was fought by the British and French against Germany. It took place between July and November of 1916 and it was fought on both sides of the River Somme, hence why it's called the Battle of Somme, which is in France. 125,000 British soldiers died just during that battle, so between those few months. So it was a really horrific battle where lots of soldiers lost their lives. So the title of the poem, as we know, is Mamet's Wood. So this is actually a place. So Mamet's Wood formed part of the Battle of the Somme. It was part of the battle plan. And what was to happen was that Welsh soldiers fighting in the British Army were ordered to walk into enemy fire in order to take Mamet's Wood from the German army. There were many fatalities. So the poet, Owen Shears, himself is Welsh. He's a poet, he's a playwright, but he's also an author, a very talented man. And this poem was inspired by a photograph of a grave, and Owen Shears wanted to honour the loss of these Welsh soldiers, and he wanted to commemorate their efforts in the war. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of context to this poem. So what is the poem actually about? So the poem begins in modern day with farmers in France discovering the bones and skeletons of these fallen soldiers from this battle. The bodies belong to the soldiers who died during the First World War. The poem makes reference to how the soldiers died, and it makes links between the earth and the men that are fallen. The poem calls for their sacrifice to be remembered. It's definitely a remembrance poem. This is one of your key words on your fact sheet as well. So we're going to begin with our analysis. Make sure you've got the poem in front of you. You're probably going to want to highlight or at least underline and annotate as we go, as I do on the screen. So for years afterwards, the farmers found them, the wasted young, turning up under their plough blades as they tended the land back into itself. So the poem begins in that modern context of the farmers in France going about their normal farming duties when they uncover the remains of these soldiers. It creates this idea of memory where it refers to them as wasted young. Obviously, many of the soldiers that signed up to fight during the First World War were underage, so that wasted young really highlights that and that their lives have been lost. A chit of bone, the china plate of a shoulder blade, the relic of a finger, the blown and broken bird's egg of a skull, all mimicked now in flint, breaking blue in white across this field where they were told to walk, not run, towards the wood and its nesting machine guns. So in this stanza, we've got lists of body parts to show the injuries of the soldiers, but also shows the constant findings that these farmers are just coming across so many different pieces of bone and body part, and it reinforces the lasting effects of the war. So you've got metaphors here of objects such as bird's egg to refer to the skull, china plate of the shoulder blade. It kind of really brings that imagery out to us. It also refers here to the sort of mosaic of the way that the body parts are scattered, and it refers to that later in the poem, as we'll see as well. But the main purpose of this is to dehumanise the bodies, make it seem as though it's not as horrific finding all of these bits of bone. But it also creates this sense of fragility, as in that the human body is very fragile, and it has clearly been shattered across this battlefield. So again, this idea, these images of brokenness, broken bird's egg of a skull, it shows the extent of the damage done to the bodies. And even now the earth stands sentinel, reaching back into itself for reminders of what happened, like a wound working a foreign body to the surface of the skin. So here the earth, as in the ground, the soil, has been personified. So that was one of your key knowledge words from the quiz at the start, so we should know what that means. Where it says, stands sentinel and tend the land back into itself. These draw the links between the earth and the bodies. The earth has been damaged as well, as though that is a physical thing with the personification. It's almost appearing to protect the bodies of the men as well. This morning, 20 men buried in one long grave, a broken mosaic of bone linked arm in arm, their skeletons paused mid-dance macabre. So this here at the start of this stanza, where it says this morning, it brings the poem into the present day and focuses the poem on the men, okay, what they've specifically found. Again, we've got another use of metaphor here. We've got imagery to show the grave of the buried men. That term mosaic, which I mentioned previously. So it's almost like a piece of art. Hopefully you know what a mosaic is. It's where small pieces of tile or stone are used to create a picture. So this mosaic reflects the brokenness of the bodies and their scattered pieces across the battlefield that have been found. And it's almost giving us this idea where it says mid-dance. Macabre means it's sort of imagery of death. Showing us that the way that they're sort of splayed out, if you like, across the battlefield is almost like a picture that they've uncovered in this grave. In boots that outlasted them, their socketed heads tilted back at an angle, and their jaws, those that have them, dropped open. So here at the start of this stanza, where it refers to the boots that outlasted them, this is an image of the past, another image that references throughout that the boots outlasted them to show the lasting effects of war, but also the lifespan, if you like, that their actual shoes outlived them. The men didn't survive, but their boots are still there because of obviously the material that they're made of. So then we have this quite vivid imagery, this idea of their heads tilted back in an angle with their jaws open, those that have them, again bringing that sort of gruesome imagery that their jaws may have been blown off. As if the notes they had sung have only now, with this unearthing, slipped from their absent tongues. So, as I said, this vivid imagery, this idea of their open mouths, could it be to reflect their screaming, their pain, their fear throughout the battle as they were shot with machine guns? But those two words there, the notes and sung, suggest that with this unearthing, with their grave being dug open by the farmers, could it be suggesting that they can now be set free, that their final words, or if it was a song as it suggests, that they can finally be remembered, and it's a way to honour them, their memory for their sacrifice to the war. So that's it for my annotations and analysis. You might want to pause the video here just to catch up on making your notes. If you want to take any bits from there, then pause here, and we've got one more slide with a bit of information to go. So final thing that I just want you to be aware of and maybe take some notes is a couple of bits about the form and structure. So the poem moves forward chronologically. So we talked about that word, that was in your key quiz at the start. So it moves forward at the as things occur, as time passes. The use of third person narrative, where it refers to them, creates a sense of distance between the reader and the events that are happening. And the short stanzas in the structure that the poem's been written in, they could possibly reflect the short part that the Welsh division played in the war, their part in this part of the battle plan with taking Mamet's wood. So make a few notes from that. You might want to add them into your annotations. You might want to look at those stanzas and how they're structured, and that will help your analysis. Okay, that's it for this week. I hope you're all okay. Stay safe and see you next time. Bye.